New York City in the 80s was a time for progressive art, jazz, funk, and a hub for the greatest innovations of art and culture. However, in this time of excitement grew also times of fear and political unrest.
A mystery disease known as the gay plague has become an epidemic unprecedented in the history of American medicine.
The AIDS epidemic was a widespread outbreak of the human immunodeficiency virus and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. This emerged in the early 1980s and continued to devastate communities around the world for decades. AIDS is a common condition caused by HIV, which attacks the immune system, weakening the body's ability to fight off infections and diseases. Because this disease infected marginalized groups such as homosexual men and drug users, this caused political unrest, leading to stigma and misinformation. Today, we examine two pillars of LGBT art in the 80s and their impact to culture and art.
Maybe you can, as a member of the press, can sit by and let these things take place and not respond to them at all. And I said, but, as far as myself, no way. I'm not going to sit still and be silent about it.
How heroic.
To the barricades!
David Wojnarowicz was a visual and performing artist and AIDS activist. After the death of his lover, Jean-Pierre Deléger, he dedicated his life to activism, eventually dying from the disease himself. Of the many books he's written, in this class we read Close to the Knives, a Memoir of Disintegration, a series of essays reflecting of fragments on Wojnarowicz's life. These essays explore his experiences with drugs, homelessness, child abuse, and sex work. His crude depiction of being a gay man in the late 20th century reminds me of another prominent New York City-based artist and activist, Keith Haring.
My work and all art really is about life, especially... my life is my work, and my work is my life. And so the two things are completely intertwined and are almost one and the same.
Keith Haring was a pop artist, most popular for his impact in graffiti subculture. His art style is so unique and distinctive, and made for an effective medium to advocate for safe sex and AIDS awareness. His career started as a guerrilla artist, drawing spontaneous, stylized images on blank advertising spaces in New York City subways. This would eventually evolve to large-scale murals, many of which he volunteered to create. Wojnarowicz relied on photography, writing to convey the brutalist victims of AIDS and sexual violence experienced on a regular basis. His art is honest, crude, and raw, often portraying difficult-to-digest topics such as drug and child abuse. Listen to the imagery he uses, describing his experience in a hungover, hot summer day on Times Square. I begin to see large rats the size of shoe boxes. You see them just out of the corner of your eyes, in the outer sphere of sight, and when you turn sharp to look at them, they just disappeared around the corner or down subway steps. And I'm so sick, my gums start bleeding every time I breathe, and on the fifth day, I start seeing what looks like the limbs of small kids, arms and legs, and the mouth of these rats, and no screaming mommies or daddies. This jarring hallucination encapsulates the on-edge feeling it is to be homosexual during the AIDS epidemic, as well as the lingering trauma that follows one after experiencing childhood abuse. Uneasy imagery, while effective for conveying a point, is difficult for most to digest, but nonetheless celebrated for its unapologetic honesty. This contrasts with Haring. As opposed to Wojnarowicz's political and autobiographical approach to art, Haring's approach is more universal and accessible. His bold graphic style creates a strong individualistic style. While Haring didn't shy from crude imagery of violence and sex, during his time as an artist, he more so embraced depicting celebrations of love and diversity, and human connection. Haring's playful approach to activism caused his iconography to be found in more locations than just art galleries, but public murals, and also serves to be a staple of fashion. Today, Haring is considered an icon of pop art and street style. Despite their differences, Wojnarowicz and Haring share several similarities, especially in their themes and subject matters. Both were AIDS activists in the late 20th century New York City. Both conveyed queerness with a unique juxtaposition of joy and tragedy. Both, in an unfortunate irony, died of AIDS. However, both also leave behind a legacy and massive impact on queerness and contemporary art.